Hello everybody, I hope you're all having an amazing day. It's Wednesday, so we're doing another little lesson. And if you guys have been around my channel for a bit, you might know that I've been having chess coaching. I think we've done about 8 sessions so far. I'm really enjoying it. I think it's helping me improve my game and get a deeper understanding of what chess is about, really. So, anyway, today's little lesson, I thought I would try summarize 5 things that I've learned from my time getting professional chess coaching. And hopefully maybe that will help you guys somewhat. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to try it out. And let's just hop straight into the first one. I've got a few examples based on my games, master games, stuff like that. The usual stuff, just to try reinforce my points a bit. Don't take it too seriously. The points are the main thing. But yeah, the first one is all about how every individual move changes your plan. Now, this might sound like a pretty obvious statement, yeah? If the position's different, your plan's going to be different. But when you are in especially like a classical game, and you have this long-term plan that you've worked really hard on, it can be hard to say goodbye to that plan sometimes and come up with a new one. And I especially have found this hard and still do find this hard. It's only a very recent revelation, I guess, that I've realized this. But yeah, after every move, the plan changes and you have to adjust your plan based on the move. So this is an example from one of my games. It's a rapid game against a 21-23. So a pretty strong opponent. I'm very happy I won this, but then again, it's a rapid game. So time trouble messes up everything, especially over the board as well. So it's a little Caro-Kann. I play the 2 knights. Usual sort of stuff. They play e7. Going with d4, and I get this little bishop set up here that I like against any non-exchange line in the Caro-Kann. They're going for like a fianchetto system, and I decide to castle alongside. And my plan is basically play like an e5, maybe even a takes. My knight's covering a2 quite nicely, and I'm just going to launch these pawns up the board and attack the king, which is most likely going to castle kingside. So that's my genius long-term plan. And some more moves happen. I start playing like a g4 to try to support these pushes eventually. They play a queen a5, which is interesting. I keep going. Obviously, my plan's my plan. I'm a big fan of sticking to my plan. You know, that's the point of it. They start to counter push. You know, I've committed to cancelling queenside. That's a perfectly logical move for them to do. And because they're not committed in the center anymore, I'm like, fine, you've blocked your queen off. It's time for me to open in the center where your king is, and I'm going to put more pressure on your king. Maybe get the rook onto e1, add more pressure, try to get you to castle, and continue with my plan again. So this is all okay. The computer's giving this a plus 1.7, so this is all good. Continue with the exchanges. They take with e. If they take with d, I think it's fine as well. Again, you know, I keep with my plan, try to break open the king side then maybe they can get their rook onto c8 as well with the newly open file, or semi-open file, I should say, and apply more pressure that way. So everything's pretty normal. I get the rook onto e1. Now black here, they continue with their plan. You know, there's potentially a sense of danger here with the open file and the king being on the open file uncastled. But they're going for my king, which is fair enough. You know, danger levels. As Gotham Chess always says, danger levels are super important. Always something to keep in mind. They go for my king. And another cool thing about this b4 move is that you're kicking my knight out the way of this a2 pawn, which is defending quite nicely. So it's a bit annoying. I bring it back to b1. Now, the computer's not a big fan of this. It drops a fair bit of eval. Giving up the a2 pawn, but we're giving up that anyway. And I thought the knight might be a bit of a defensive tool, potentially on b1. I don't know. But anyway, f6 is a bit of a strange move. I thought they would potentially keep going with the pawn pushes, keep piling the pressure. f6, I guess, tries to stop any g5 ideas after like a h5 or something. With an f5, trying to kill my light squared bishop. I'm not quite sure. Maybe get the king to f7 as well. Get the rooks involved that way. Could be an idea. We break on h5, continuing with our plan, and then long castles happens. Now, this is the move I want to talk about, really. The rest was just introductory, getting into the position sort of stuff. Long castles. Now, I've said several times here, my plan revolves around them castling to break open the kingside. Now, my opponent saw my break was practically inevitable. There's not much you can do about it here. So they just castled kingside to get out of the way. So, my plan's out the window. It's gone. It's kaput. There's nothing I can do about it. I need to now take a minute and adjust my plan to the new position, because the position has fundamentally changed, fundamentally changed. So, how am I going to do this? Well, this queen's super annoying here. My knight's practically dead, and this pawn's super annoying with some pressure on the a2 pawn. The thing I have is this nice light squared bishop and this sort of claim on the open file. So, I try and make the most of that. Firstly, I play a h6. h6 is not the best move, I will admit. But it's sort of keeping this bishop out of the game, potentially stopping like a h5 idea. I drop the bishop back now. I sort of like this. You're pinning the pawn to the queen, and the queen's pinned to the pawn as well, because they can't take a2 without you taking the pawn. Also, you're freeing up your rook, which I make use of pretty quickly, getting the rook to e6, looking to double up, looking at this c6 pawn as well. Potentially ideas of rook takes, or rook takes, either one. Some stupid ideas that I'll come up with eventually. I don't know. And I break with c3. Now, c3, I felt I had no other choice, really. This pawn's hanging. My knight's completely out of the game. And so is my dark square bishop a bit. So c3 at least frees up some things and covers the d4 pawn. They keep going. And basically my plan starts to come, my new plan, I should say, starts to come to fruition. I get my light squared bishop and my queen doubled up. My rook and my queen are now doubled up as well. I can get this other rook in the game. I'm able to get my knight in the game after like a takes or push or something. And things are starting to look nice. They take. We finally get this knight back in the game. We give them the d4 pawn though, with check. And you can see now things very, very quickly get out of hand for black. My queen comes in. And with a nice little rook sack there, we get a checkmate. Anyway, don't mind too much about the game. It's more just to back up my point. But I hope you see the point I made about how my plan had to change. And I had to adapt. And I had to maneuver my pieces in order to get the most out of them in the new position. Anyway, that's that. On to point number 2. So, point number 2 I have from my coaching experience is to calculate absolutely everything. I am a big sucker for not calculating things. It's horrible. It's a bad habit. I often describe myself as an intuitive player. And that's sort of code word for I guess. I guess at tactics. I don't do things all the way through. I half-arse stuff. And it's a terrible, terrible habit. So my advice to you, and something I'm trying to take on board and trying to consciously make an effort to fix, calculate absolutely everything, especially when it comes to tactics. So to back up my point here, we have a game from a tournament, and I'm going to embarrass myself a little bit in this one. It wasn't my best tournament, granted. It wasn't a particularly good performance and not a performance I'm proud of. But we'll show it anyway. It's against a 1381, so quite significantly lower rated than me. And it's a Scotch. I'm playing the Scotch with black. Why not? Pretty regular stuff. We all trade off. I managed to win an exchange somehow. Pretty cool tactics, if I remember properly. Win the exchange. And we keep playing. I keep trying to win pieces. And we get to sort of this position. I'm chasing the rook around here. With the bishop coming potentially to c6. Pinning the rook to the queen. The king, sorry. And the rook has to go to h5. And I thought it would be clever to try chase this rook away with king g6. And this is fine. It's still winning. The computer's actually saying this is minus 5.5 for black. So this is completely winning. The king goes to g4, and that's a really good move. Defending the rook. and stopping any f5 ideas potentially trapping the pawn, trapping the rook. I decided to go f5 anyway, and the computer's dropped a bit of evaluation here. And now here comes the key move. So knight takes f5, really good. Obviously, you don't want to take with the rook, and you're not going to let check stand. So you take with the knight. And here I thought I would be a bit fancy. So the obvious move is just knight takes, and you go down a pawn, whatever. You can take this. Potentially you've got some bishop d7 pinning the rook to the knight or something along those lines. I thought I would be fancy. I thought I would go ahead and play king to f6. Trying to be fancy. And you'll see the eval bar drop there significantly to a drawn position. I actually almost ended up losing this. And my idea behind f6 was, I'm threatening to take this with check, potentially even winning this knight. I'm threatening to potentially play g6. I'm threatening potentially to take this. I don't know. I thought I was being clever. I thought it was a quote-unquote clinical way of playing the game out. The problem was I missed something pretty obvious, and I hope you guys can see this. Knight e4 check. And this guy spotted it straight away. And I was mortified when I saw this. I was like, am I losing this now? Because knight takes knight is devastating. And then you're potentially winning both of these pawns. And even though I'm, up the exchange here, up a piece even, I'll say, it's super, super scary. Like, ridiculously scary. These pass pawns are potentially promoting. And instead of playing the right move, I panicked. The right move is king f7 here, and apparently that's drawn, according to the computer. Again, according to the computer. Not that I know much about it. Apparently just check. I decided to play the even worse move, king to e6. Now this is probably winning for white. It's saying 1.1. Even though, again, you're up a piece. The whole point is that knight takes g5. And, yeah, not looking nice. You've got threats of rook h6. Threats of, takes f7. And it's really, really nasty. Knight takes knight d6, potentially even, I don't know. Then you just push the pawns, worst case scenario. And this is horrible. This is absolutely horrible. And this is all because I thought I was being clever. I didn't calculate things out properly. I should have gone for the simple option, and I didn't. I thought I was being smart. This is probably my worst moment in chess. I'm not going to lie. Probably my worst moment in chess, but that's fine. Everyone makes mistakes. And the important thing is you learn from it. You learn from it, and you don't make it again. You calculate everything out in the future. But yeah, this is super important. If you're going to play tactically and you're going to focus on tactics, actually do the tactics properly, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, on to the next point. The next point we have here is a really cool one, and it's something I've thoroughly taken on board into my chess. It's to insist your pieces are better. If you saw my middle game video, you saw one of my points was to play actively. This sort of links into that. Insist your pieces are better. Now, I think this specifically applies to minor pieces, so that's your bishops and your knights. And you can see here in this example is great. So, as white, Wang Yu is playing Timur Rajabov, both extremely strong players. And it's black's move here. And you can see all of black's pawns are on dark squares. And black's got a very sad dark squared bishop here. So what's black going to do in order to draw this? Now, it isn't admittedly the only drawing move, but it's the flashiest and the coolest looking one, I believe. The whole idea is e4. What? e4. So, you're even on pawns and you decide to sack a pawn. Bearing in mind, this could potentially create a passed pawn here. In order to free up your bishop, that's wild, but the strength of this bishop is absolutely like even value for the pawn. It's ridiculous. Just freeing up the bishop makes the sacrifice completely worth it. Not only because you're hitting this b2 pawn potentially with the rook coming on b8, but you also have this check here, getting the king all the way back to h1. Obviously, you can do knight h2, but then you're moving your pieces further away and it's slightly better for black even. So king h1 is the way to go. You've boxed White's king out the way. You've freed up your bishop. And now you can start to work your pressure on this this b2 pawn. So I think this is a really cool example. You know, I think there are lots of examples, but I think sacrificing something as solid as a pawn, and this is a very nice pawn as well. It's stopping any f4 ideas, and potentially could push. I don't know. I don't know the tactics. I've not looked at this properly. I just saw the e4 move from the book I'm reading, and it looked really cool. I thought I'd show you guys. But anyway, yeah, you're sacrificing material in order to make your pieces better. And you don't always have to do that. Just try to be conscious about it. Try to make an effort to make your pieces better. And in return, your pieces will make your life easier. Anyway, on to the next point. So, point number 4, we have... I'm going to be embarrassing myself again this one, but it's don't trust your opponents. Now, this is a very, very sort of key idea, psychological idea as well. You know, the psychology of chess isn't talked about much, but I still think it's pretty important. So, don't trust your opponent. Now, this is a pretty obvious one. Like, your opponent is not your friend. They want to try trick you. They want to try deceive you. And you want to try to do the same to them. You know, it's not a friendly game, is chess. It's very, very brutal. And you want to win at, quote-unquote, any cost. You know, obviously there are some limits. But yeah, this is from one of my games. And this is a time where I completely took my opponent's word for something without actually, again, calculating everything. So, 1674 is my opponent playing as white. I'm playing as black. We have a modern. I felt like playing a modern. I'm not sure why. Usual sort of stuff. They play knight c3, blah, blah, blah. We keep going. Bishop f5. Now, here I could have blocked with the knight or something. I didn't fancy that. I played queen b6. I felt, again, playing active, insisting your pieces are better. I'm not sure. Maybe it was right. Maybe it was wrong. Then bishop to c4 is a very, very interesting idea with potential ideas of sacking there with the queen coming in. I'm not sure. Queen d8 is a big threat, so I can't take this pawn immediately. So I play a knight d7, you know, blocking off the queen from getting to d8, covering this pawn once more, and developing again. You know, so I think it's pretty cool. And the computer agrees with me. Anyway, then they play this really, really cool move, queen d6. Now they are immediately applying a lot of pressure on me here. But then again, the mating square is not there, you know. And that's another thing about leaving this knight here, is that you're covering the mating square here. So, what do? I call their bluff. I take b2, and I'm happy with it, you know. And the computer's happy with it as well. It's saying it's the best move. Then something very, very cool happens. The king goes to d2. Sorry, the king goes to d2 first. To cover the knight, queen takes rook check, obviously. And I play what I think is this cool move, bishop f8. Bishop f8, kicking the queen out, potentially going like a bishop b4, hitting the knight with the queen as well. And I'm looking good here. I can play like an f6 without my bishop getting locked in now. Then I can play like a knight e7, something along those lines. And I'm pretty happy. Now it's the move that shocked me. Knight takes e5. Knight takes e5. Wow, what a move. Well, what's the immediate threat? We'll see the immediate threat. Bishop takes f7 mate is the threat. And you may notice as well, this has left the queen hanging. It's left the queen hanging. Now, bishop f7 mate scared the devil out of me. I was terrified. And I think potentially rightfully so. I didn't see this at all. I think is another key point to mention. I didn't see this at all. I thought they were going to do some queen d3 or something. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, I was terrified. Or maybe like a queen f4. Again, I don't know. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. This shocked me and scared me. I was terrified. The problem is, I took my opponent's word for it. He said, this is going to be mate. You need to do something about this. And I said, oh, well, yeah, let's do something about it. Rather than realizing, in fact, I can just take the queen. It's a free queen. Because Once you move this bishop on f8, it's no longer checkmate. And you're just up a queen for a pawn. Okay. Okay. I was a bit silly for not seeing this. And funnily enough, like maybe 15 moves later, I was like, could I have taken that queen? And I was fuming because I was in a bit of a tough position, actually. I ended up winning the game quite nicely. I ended up having to actually sack the queen for the rook, which sort of evened it out a bit. But yeah, I took my opponent's word for it, and I played something even worse, rather than the computer saying, if not bishop takes d6, queen takes c3, and then take the queen. I don't know. I played knight h6. What am I doing? Blunders mate in 3 with bishop takes f7. I fell to my own prevention, I guess, because you no longer have like any protection around your king because you moved your knight away. Knight takes f7. What's it saying? Bishop. What is it? Queen e6 check. That's it. That's the idea. Bishop e7, and you need the knight there to support the bishop as well to avoid mate, and they can just take this. Horrible stuff. Absolutely horrible stuff. I was mortified, to be honest, when I saw this in the computer. Luckily, they didn't play that. And they played knight takes, which brings it back up to good things for me. I can just take this. And they're all happy. It's still a bit scary. They get some potentially perpetual checks. I'm not quite sure with the discoveries. Maybe they win the rook back. I'm not sure. But I also played this a bit poorly. Had to sack the queen. Anyway, I ended up winning this. Key takeaway: don't trust your opponent. Your opponent is not your friend. They're going to try trick you. They might miscalculate. You might miscalculate. Things get wild. Just do yourself a favor and check it for yourself. Check it for yourself. Check it properly. Check it objectively, I should say, rather than unobjectively. Check it objectively. Make sure it actually works or doesn't work. But yeah, don't trust your opponent. On to the next one. So, the final thing that I've learned so far from my time getting professional coaching is to control the pawn breaks in the game. Now, again, it seems like an obvious one, but in reality, it's harder than it looks. And I actually had trouble finding a good example for this one. Because oftentimes, both sides have pawn breaks available to them. But this is an example from Fischer versus Spassky. I forget what tournament. And basically, it's a very locked up position. Fischer has the white pieces, by the way. And you can see this. This is the whole idea. White's not going to take this because then the open file is going to be contested. And if black takes this, they're going to have this nasty backwards pawn on a6 with potential of like a b5 after everything's doubled up and all that good stuff. So, black just moved rook to f8, looking for potentially a kingside break. And white just carries on their merry way. They go rook a3. And again, we said, obviously you don't want to push a5 because then you've lost your pawn break. You don't want to take because then things are evening up. So what does Fischer do? But add more pieces. Add more pieces. Why not? And black can do whatever they want. The rook goes to a2 as well. The queen comes in. And then Fischer starts this really, really cool idea. They add another piece into the attack. Now, you might think, how do they add more than 3 pieces onto this? And in reality, they're not actually looking for this a6 pawn, which is what you might think. They're not looking for this a rook either. In reality, Fischer's looking for this b5 pawn. So, they do this move, knight f1. What is that knight doing? It's on the other side of the board. How is it ever coming to this attack? The whole idea is that the knight's going to f1, to d2, to b1, to a3, then hitting the b5 pawn. And Fischer has so much time for this because he is the only one with the pawn break in this position. Especially with this knight on f6, there is no f pawn break, and Fischer has all the time in the world. Now, what ended up happening, Spassky ended up having to actually sacrifice the knight for the 2 pawns in order to potentially make some counterplay. On on the king side, especially seeing as how all these rooks are over on the queen side. And the game just carried on as normal. Trades off happens. The knight, I think, eventually does get to a3. I'm not quite sure, or maybe not. Maybe not. But anyway, the idea was there. You know, if things ever get traded off, the knight can go to a3 and pick off this b5 pawn, which is absolutely insane to me. And I think what's more insane as well is that Fischer had the time and the guts to actually make this knight maneuver. And how many moves is this knight maneuver? We'll count it out. 1, 2, 3, 4 moves. Not that he actually ended up doing the fourth, but he went back as well. So maybe 4 moves. We'll say 4. Had the time and realised how dead this position is for black. That black actually had to sacrifice the piece for the 2 pawns in order to have any chance at counterplay. Now the game went on and ended up in a pretty cool, interesting, unique position, I guess. And Fischer ended up winning in this position here. I think, what was it, black resigned? I'm not quite sure. Anyway, control the pawn breaks is what I'm trying to say. Control the pawn breaks. Because that's the way you gain entrance. And if you had time to add more pieces into the attack, then things are going to work out well for you. Anyway, I hope I didn't ramble too much this video. It felt a bit rambly. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you all learnt something. This is just my experience as well. You know, if you have your own coaching or you have your own style, you might have different things or other things you work on. I'm just sharing what I thought I've learned and what might be useful. But anyway, please like if you liked. Please subscribe if you really liked. And I'll catch you guys all tomorrow. Bye-bye.